morning, guys. We are on safari in Etosha National Park. I've got the 600mm lens that I rented, the Canon f4. This isn't going to be a review of the 600mm f4. It's going to be more of just me talking about my feelings on it and my thoughts on if you come to Africa, if you come on safari, if it's something you might want to rent. So we're out. There's giraffes right here, and we're going to shoot. Two lions, a male and a female. We saw them last night. Getting busy. This morning they're a little bit separated and calmer. But I want to talk about how heavy this lens is, because it is massively heavy and you need to be prepared for that if you rent it. So I tried hand holding it the other day. It's basically impossible. But what I've done is I've just got my three-legged thing head down here and a monopod, and that's kind of holding the weight a little bit better. But even then I'm kind of struggling with the weight a bit. But I do think it's worth the wait. So I want to talk about the video really quick because it is phenomenal. The autofocus system is actually really good for the video. We've got some springbok out here fighting, and it's in with some grass, and the autofocus is really holding tight. It's really sharp, and the image quality is just phenomenal. I'm really happy how the video is coming out with this lens. All the B-roll on today's episode, that's telephoto, is with the 600mm, and then of course these talking scenes is Jody filming, and then some of the wider stuff. But I think the video quality from this off the 600mm is unreal. The thing I was worried about with this lens is I didn't think it was going to have enough range. I thought it was going to be stuck at 600mm, and it would have been nice to have, you know, a telephoto zoom. But I haven't missed, you know, the zoom range too much. I felt like 600 has actually been really good here. There's only been a couple times where we've been close to giraffe or elephants that it's just been too much lens. The one thing I will say though is that the image stabilization is so loud that I think sometimes if you were out in nature, it's a little bit distracting, a little bit disturbing. We were out with the lions last night and you could just hear it constantly. In fact, Jody at one point was like, "Is that a lion behind us?" But it was just the lens. Had an awesome game drive this morning. Combined with yesterday night here in Etosha, it's just been absolutely brilliant so far. I'm going to take you into my computer so I can show you sharpness and some of the finer details of what these images look like. But before we do, I just want to say, if I could have any lens for wildlife photography on safari, it's the 200-400 with the extender, the Canon, the new version. It's brilliant. It's such a good lens. It's a little bit more versatile, but of course it's also way more expensive. I think another $6,000 more expensive. But the 600mm f4 is probably my second choice. I like it that much, and yeah, I think that let's jump into the computer and check out these images. Morning, how are you? I'm good, thank you. Okay, at my computer, at my desk, and I'm about to dive into these photos. I will say, before I show you the photos, that I'm pretty excited about how they came out. This was just one morning. This was one game drive. So essentially we were out for 2.5 hours. And I think I came away with at least 5 images that are really good. Probably one image that's great. And then a bunch of keepers that I can sell for, you know, for stock or to commercial clients or whoever I have available. I rented the lens in Windhoek from a company called Capture Namibia, and the price was really good. For the 10 days I used it, I think I paid $450. Compare that with like Boro lenses in the US, I think they probably charge about 3 times or 4 times that price. So it was $400, which essentially means I just need to make 1 or 2 sales with the lens to make my money back. So I think I did that. I think it was totally worth renting. So if you're going to Namibia, go give Pascal a shout at Capture Namibia and rent something from him rather than hauling a big piece of kit with you. This video is not sponsored by Capture Namibia. I paid full price. It was just, yeah, it was a great service and I'm happy that I did it. Now, getting to these photos, yeah, they came out really good. Like I said, it was just one game drive. All the images I'm about to show you were just from one game drive. It was all shot in one morning. And the crazy thing is, that morning wasn't even spectacular. Yes, we had a really cool moment with the 2 lions before they walked off into the sunset. But other than that, we didn't see anything that was just unreal. We didn't get leopards, we didn't get rhinos, we didn't even see elephants. We got like a honey badger, some springbok, and really that was about it. It wasn't the greatest morning for sightings, but because the lens was so good to me, I think I came away with some images. So I'm gonna take you right now into my computer. I'm gonna flip you inside the computer so you can see what's going on in the world of my computer. That's Netflix, Black Sails, which I'm gonna get back to. This is Lightroom. So this is the morning. Essentially, it starts here at image 261. And these are the images I'm keeping from the trip. So 261 all the way down to, this is the end of the morning, 311. So that's a really, really good morning. That's a fantastic morning. Now, some of the images aren't tack sharp. I'm keeping them, even though they're not tack sharp, which is something totally against what I normally do, but it's kind of a new thing I'm trying to do, is to just keep some images on file just for memory purposes, even if they're not perfect. So let me flip you back onto the computer and I'll just show you the sharpness of the 600mm lens. This is one of the first images I shot in the morning right here. This is at ISO 3200, 600mm, 1/160th of a second. And honestly, this is a mistake. I should have been cranking the ISO to 6400 so I could have a little bit more shutter speed. So if there is camera shake on a shot like this, I will not be surprised. That being said, the image stabilization is so good on that camera, on the 600mm f4, that I also wouldn't be surprised if it was sharp. I can also see that there needs to be some work done to this image because it needs to be warmed up a little bit to cut out some of this chromatic aberration that's happening up here. But while we're zoomed in and while you can see that chromatic aberration, let's look at the sharpness here. And to be honest, it looks pretty good. It's maybe a little bit muddy there, but I think that's also just camera shake from me shooting this a little bit too slow shuttered.
but it's definitely a usable file. You can see the nose is out of focus at f4, but the eyes are in focus, as are the ears. So definitely usable. I want to jump back and look at another one of these photos, this one, and see if it looks the same. Because it was shot, this one, at ISO 6400, but with a little bit more shutter speed, so hopefully it should be sharper. And if you look at it, yeah, it's definitely sharper. You can see every single blade of the eyelash there, which is phenomenal. It's got, yeah, that chromatic aberration issue from it being shot a little bit blue into dawn, but yeah, it's definitely sharp. It's sharp from basically the ears right down to the nose. The nose is out of focus. Interestingly, the mouth is in focus with all the beard hair in focus as well as this branch. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I do have to obviously clean up that chromatic aberration, but I'll get to that. Let's look at a wider image. Which one? Let's do this one where this giraffe was kind of choking. Not choking, it just couldn't get this piece of bush into its mouth. It was physically for 4 minutes just struggling to get this bush into its mouth to try to eat it. So I'm curious to see, yeah, if this is sharp. Let's zoom in on this. By the way, I'm zooming into about 150%. To define sharpness on an image, you zoom into 100%, and that should be sharp at 100%. I'm going 150% just to dive a little bit deeper. So let's zoom in again to 150, and you can see again, it's just tack sharp. The little bush, let's go into like 300. Even at 300, it's still really sharp. That's about 150, and as you can see, it's super sharp throughout the skin of the giraffe. It looks great. Let's move on to some lions. I made the same mistake with the lions. I was really feeling, I don't know, I was feeling like it wasn't bright enough. It was overcast, it was early in the morning, and I probably shouldn't have risked it, but as you can see, I'm trying to shoot these lions at 1/320th. Even though there's some action kind of happening, I probably could have bumped this to ISO 3200, but I kind of have this old school mentality that everything needs to be shot at lowest ISO possible, which is something I kind of need to get out of. But let's zoom in on this lion. And yeah, actually she looks tack sharp. Even these like, whatever this dirt is hanging off her beard is beautiful. Absolutely sharp. Right off through the back. I shot this again at f4. Normally, if you're shooting wildlife, or really if you're shooting anything, your lens is going to be sharpest from 1 to 2 stops above the lowest aperture it shoots. So if your camera shoots, f4 like the 600mm does, it's going to be sharpest at f5.6 or f8. You're also going to get a little bit more depth of field as well, which allows you to have a little bit more error in your focusing. So I'm really happy with this because not only is this lioness's face totally sharp, but the whole body is as well. So that's great. Happy with the sharpness so far. I want to show you one of the lion images because it's not sharp, and this is an image I'm kind of choked that it's not sharp, but if you see when I zoom in on it, that the focus must have hit these blades of grass in the foreground, and I mustn't have pointed the focus in the right spot, which should have been right here on the eyes. So the eyes are a little bit out of focus, and this grass in the foreground's in focus. So it's front focused a little bit, but I don't think that's the camera's fault. I think that's my fault, or potentially the 5D Mark IV picked up some grass in the foreground, and I should have been seeing that and maybe manually focusing to adjust, but we'll deal with that. Some lion love. Let's look at some lion love. Again, I was trying to force my camera to shoot at f4 just because I needed the light, but I really kind of wish I would have bumped this up to f5.6 and the ISO to 3200, but you live and you learn. Let's zoom in on this angry looking lion. And again, they look absolutely tack sharp. In fact, I think this is actually sharper than the last one. The lioness kind of has a bored look on her face. The lion, not so much. But yeah, absolutely sharp, and I love that. Let's cruise on through through the morning. This is an interesting image, I think, because I shot this as the lioness was walking off into the sunset, and I was really sad that I didn't have the 100 to 400 on, because there was this incredible sky up here that I just couldn't capture. But at the end of the day, this is also a pretty cool image. And I was thinking to myself at the time that if she was sharp, I was going to be just shocked, because I was shooting f4 and then straight into this backlight. And if you look at it, she's definitely tack sharp. You can see her paws right there. You can see the focus at f4 starts about here and ends back there. So she's right in that focus spot. Again, well done 600. Let's look at something maybe a little bit more normal, a bit more midday. This jackal that we saw later. This image was shot at 1/1000th, f4, ISO 400. If this image isn't sharp, the lens has a problem. This should be as sharp as a photo can be. Let's zoom in and check that out. Check out how sharp the eye is. Check every strand of hair on the jackal's back and on the ears. It is just phenomenally sharp. And look at that bokeh in the background, just buttery. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm going to take this into 300. And even at 300, it's still totally sharp. You can see all the eyelashes and whiskers. Just beautiful. I'm really pleased with his lens and how it handles the color, especially this warm color in the morning. For example, on this black-faced springbok here, I think that's what they're called. I don't actually know. They're the black springbok, whatever it is, the endemic animal to Etosha National Park. Look at the color and that bokeh. It is just phenomenal. And this mongoose, finally, the last image of the day. Let's get up into this mongoose's grill. That's 250 crop and just so sharp. Let's go back to 100 crop. You can't fault that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's so sharp. So in sum, and I'm going to just finish this video now, I probably just sound like I'm raving on about this lens. Yes, I am, because it is that good. It is that sharp. It was really fast to focus. The image stabilization was unreal, and the image quality came out phenomenal. But more than anything, using this camera on safari in Namibia made me decide that I'm not going to buy the 600mm f4. And it might seem crazy to you after you're seeing me rant and rave about how beautiful the images are, but it was just so big. It was just almost unmanageable sometimes. I couldn't be out shooting and then pull it back in. I couldn't twist and turn. It was just too big. And if there's another lens like the 200 to 400 with the extender, which I used in Etosha 2 years ago, that's out there, that is smaller, it's lighter, it has a little bit more versatility, and yes, I know it's more expensive, but I can't justify a 600mm prime when something else like that exists. So using this lens was amazing and it was a great experience, but it also kind of made me realize that it's not a lens I'm gonna buy. At some point, maybe in 2 years before coming back to Namibia and South Africa, I'll probably buy the 200 to 400 just because I think that's a more versatile lens, and I think a lens like that will last forever. So yeah, that's I guess my final thought. 1, the 600mm is incredible. One of the best lenses I've ever used. And 2, I don't think I'll buy it. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Tomorrow I have one last video from Etosha National Park where I'm going to walk you through kind of my wildlife photography process and kind of take you through my mindset when I'm out photographing wildlife on a safari. So I hope you guys tune in for that episode, and I'll see you there. Peace.